Welcome to the Words to Empower podcast, featuring Bishop Frank Stewart, pastor of the Acts Ministry in Conway and North Little Rock. And now, Pastor Stewart.
Welcome back to your Acts Ministry podcast. God is so good to us. And as we're studying here in St. Matthew chapter 6, our study starts in Joshua chapter 1. We're studying the whole book of Joshua, but we're studying what we have paraphrased from verses 12 to 18 in the book of Joshua chapter 1. And what we paraphrase, what is going on there is the 2.5 tribes saying, we got ours, and now we're going to fight until you get yours. Can you imagine living in a world like that? Can you imagine just having that mentality? We got ours, now we're going to fight until you get yours. We've been told, I got mine, yeah, you got to get yours. It's a dog-eat-dog world. But that's not the principles of the Bible. That's not the principle God wants us to look at. So that principle is giving. Now in Matthew chapter 6, we've been reading in the book of Matthew for the last 2 days. It's something that keep jumping out. It's talking about giving. As we said in verse 33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. He's talking about giving to God first. Seek first. That's time. That's time. You don't seek without giving time. That's not a quick thing. That takes time to do that. So he's asking us to give him our time, because he's a great and awesome God, and if we give him our time first, then he says everything will be added to you. So even when he tells us to put him first, it comes with a promise. You put me first, and I'm going to do this for you. You see that God is a giver. He's a giver. He's a giver. But when I read here, it is something that is very obvious, and it is fear. Fear robs people of these things being added to you. It will rob you of that. It will rob you of what God wants to do. Because when we release what's in our hand, God releases what's in his hand. And the little we release can't compare to what God is going to release. But it is something that kind of jumped off the page at me. And it's in verse 28. And we read that on yesterday. And it's in verse number 31. And it is also in verse number 34. Just in those verses, we see something. We're talking about giving. It says in verse 28, so why do you worry about clothing? You see that? He says you're worried about clothing. Worry isn't just another word for fear. You are fearful that you're not going to receive that. So when you're fearful of that, fear will cause you to shut your hand. Then he says in verse 31, therefore do not worry, saying what we shall eat. If you feel like you're not going to have anything to eat, you're going to run out of money, you will hold on to that which belongs to God. And then in verse 34, he comes back again and says, therefore do not worry about tomorrow. Many people are trying to secure their tomorrow. Now, brothers and sisters, we're supposed to be wise. And as I've said, the Lord said that we're supposed to leave an inheritance to our children. We're supposed to be a blessing to not just our children, but our children. Now, so he's not against prosperity. As a matter of fact, he's the God of prosperity. He's the God of more than enough. But if we are fearful to release what's in our hands to give to him, what he's asked of us, if we are fearful of that, if we don't do that, then what happens is that we never receive what was in his hand. Now that's a tragedy. That is a tragedy. And he says, if you don't give your time, your talents and your treasures, then God can't release his. Seek ye first. Give me that precious time.
Stay tuned for more of Frank Stewart. And now for some special announcements.
Thanks for partnering with the Acts Ministries. We value your service and your donations. That's why we've made it easy to make contributions to support our ministry. Simply go to your web browser and click the search bar and type in actsministriesonline.org. Then click Donate Online. It's really that easy. For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242. That's Simple Give.
And now, more of Pastor Frank Stewart.
Put me first. Give me the beginning of the day. Give me time. Hear what I'm telling you. Now, he says to them 3 times, the latter part of Matthew chapter number 6, don't worry. Don't worry. Because what fear will do, it will not allow you to put God first, because you will put other things first if you weren't about tomorrow, if you weren't about what you're going to eat, if you weren't about your clothing. Not that you don't have it, but the fear of losing it or the fear of not having will make you so aggressive, trying to make sure you always have, that you will rob God. And the last thing you want to do, or I want to do, is rob the Almighty. The last thing we want to do is put him on pause. Now, brothers and sisters, let me just talk to you for a minute, because many of us do that. We put him on pause. We tell God, hold on a minute. Now I want you to see it. I want you to see it. Don't deny it, just see it. God is on the main line, yeah, but he's on the main line. He's always on the main line. But many times we have pushed the pause button. And we're saying to God, I'll get back with you in a minute. I'll get back with you. And before we know it, days have passed, weeks, months, years have passed. And we have put God on pause. On pause. And God is on hold. The fearful thing, brothers and sisters, is that when you get back to him, is he still going to be there? Now, I know God is long-suffering. I know God is gracious and he's merciful. But you have to understand that God is also a God of wrath. And even if he's still on the line, you have to understand what you have missed. And all the time that we have wasted trying to do for ourselves what God could have done for us in the blink of an eye. And he could have done it for us without the sweat that we have encountered, the sweat, the stress, and all of that that's gone with that, the strokes, the heart attacks, the nervous breakdown, all of that. The songwriter said, oh, what needless things we bear, all because we will not carry everything to God in prayer. That's true. So true. We won't take everything to him in prayer. So here is a warning. Do not worry. Do not worry. God is saying, don't worry, because if you worry, if you fear, then you're not going to do what I'm asking you to do. You're not going to do it. Your reward is great. Your reward is going to be great, but don't allow fear to come into your life. Because if fear comes into your life, then it is going to destroy you. Now, let me just prove this to you. In Genesis chapter 15 and verse number 1, this is God talking to Abraham, who is the father of faith. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abraham in a vision, or Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am your shield and your exceeding great reward. Now think about that. He just told him not to fear. He's not talking about fearing an enemy. He's not talking about a visible enemy. He's not talking about an army is attacking him. He's not talking about a lion or something that's getting ready to attack him. He's not talking about some disease or sickness. But he says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I am your God. Don't be afraid. I'm your shield, and I'm your exceeding great reward. I'm going to bless you. Now see, this is talking about Abraham is dealing with not having a son. Not having a son. And there's a little fear here because he's getting older and he doesn't have anyone to leave what God has given him, the fortune. So he doesn't have a son, and God comes to him and said, don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid. I am going to reward you. I'm going to bless you. You know, the Bible talks about our labor of love. Our labor of love. And he tells us that we don't have to fear that labor of love that we have, that we will go unrewarded. Our labor of love. So that's important. That's important that we understand that. Because if we don't understand that, we will hold what we should give. We will lock it up. We will keep it for ourselves. We will not allow God to have it because we don't understand that he is not a God that he should lie. If God declares a thing, my brothers and sisters, he is going to see it to the end. And we want him to see it to the end. Because if he see it to the end, we know everything's going to be all right, and we know that he can't lie, so he's going to see it to the end. But he's saying you're going to receive. Because there's a fear. There's a fear we have. And that's why he tells us don't worry. Don't worry to open. Don't be afraid to open your hand and give to God. To give to God. Don't be afraid of that. Don't worry about that. God sees everything. He knows everything. He sees and he knows. And he says that our labor of love is going to be rewarded. Yeah, it's not going to go unnoticed. It's not going to go, man might not notice it. Man might not say anything about it. But God says, hey, I know. Now, that should be enough for all of us. If God says he knows, then we should understand that's the one we want to know. We want him to know. We don't want man to know, because you don't want man to pay you, because when anything man will do, it is limited. It is limited. So we have to realize that we want God to reward us. We want God to give us the reward. And that is going on with Abraham. He's kind of a little nervous here now. He's getting older, and his time is running out. And as he's looking at his time is running out, he's saying to God, Lord, I don't have anybody. I don't have an heir. So since I don't have an heir, Lord, what I'm going to do, what's going to happen to all this stuff that I have that you've given me? And God is just saying, calm down, Abraham. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. I'm going to take care of you. I am going to take care of you. So don't be afraid of that. God says to the Thessalonian church, Paul speaking to them, says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 3, remember without ceasing your work of faith and labor of love. Labor of love. So when we have given our labor of love, when we have given to God, now this confuses people. When you say given to God, because God is a spirit, God is invisible. Given to God, how do I give to God? Well, when you give to the things God has commanded us to give to, when we do what God has commanded us to do, and I'm not just talking treasures, I'm not just talking money, I'm talking time and talent too. Time, talent, and treasure. When we do what God has asked us to do, and it's very simple what he's asked us to do. He's asked us to be a sponsor of the gospel on earth. That's what we are. We're sponsors. So he asked that we give the 10%, that we sponsor the gospel of Jesus Christ. The one thing they ran in trouble in the Old Testament was that they stopped giving. And when they stopped giving, the Levites, the priests, they couldn't serve. So the whole purpose, the whole purpose of their existence, to give the world, not just a savior of the world, but to evangelize the world, it fell apart. It fell apart because they did not understand the purpose that he said about giving. And we don't want to be like that. We don't want to be like the children of Israel, where the priests could not minister because they were not sufficiently taken care of. God has a plan on how to take care of the leaders, the priests, and also the poor and others. And he has given us a system on how to do that. So he says to the Thessalonian church, remember without ceasing your work of faith and labor of love. I want you to think about that. But I want you to keep in your mind from this day forward, remember those words. We got ours. Now we're going to fight until you get yours. Personalize it. I got mine. Now I'm going to fight until you get yours. So when we look at that, that means that you need to make sure you got yours. Because until you get yours, you cannot effectively witness. Now, I know some folks are greedy, and I know I have to temper this because some people, what they're trying to get is so much, they'll never do anything. They'll keep saying, I'm trying to get mine, when they really have an opportunity to be a blessing. They'll just keep on using that as an excuse. But when God elevates, when God blesses, when God puts you in a position, if it's just to give bread, if it's just to give water, if it's just to give of your time and to the sick, to those that are incarcerated, then God says, you have given. You have given. We make giving just about money, and I understand that. That's what we get today. We get that today, and that's what we give today, and we need to be faithful in that. But it is so much work to be done outside of that. That do we volunteer at the house of the Lord, or do we feel so comfortable that we have rendered unto him the 10th that we have? So we have to look at that. We have to look at that. He's talking about giving from every perspective. Give me of your time, your energy. Give me of your talents. You know, when we think about talents, it's so many talents in the church that if they're not functionable, then we're in trouble. If the ushers do not usher, if the choir do not sing, those with melodious voices, the musicians do not play, where would the church be? My time is up. I want you to tune in on tomorrow as we're going a little deeper with this. God bless you.
For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242.
The Acts Church in North Little Rock is located at 1224 Franklin Street. Morning Glory begins at 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Sunday school begins at 8:30 a.m. And for a powerful word, join us at 9:30 a.m. for our morning worship service. Bible study is each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. At our Conway location, Morning Glory begins at 10 a.m. Sunday school begins at 10:30 a.m. Worship service begins at 11:30 a.m. On Thursday, our Bible class begins at 6:30 p.m. For more information, go to actsministriesonline.org or give us a call at 501-329-2055.
Thank you for tuning in to the Acts Ministry Podcast. The Acts Church is located at 1423 Indian Street in Conway and 1224 Franklin Street in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Tune in each day to hear an inspiring word from Pastor Frank Stewart.